Hello, Wild here, and we are in the mountains of British Columbia, out in the middle of nowhere, and I'm trying out some really nice scenery. They don't have but a couple of airports, but what you get is really detailed. I mean, look at these trees and the grass and things like stumps and logs and so on. So they've done a great job. It's not ortho, but it's just really well rendered, detailed stuff. And we'll just climb up here. You get a more of a bird's eye view. So the runway, believe it or not, I don't know if you'd call it a runway. You'd call it a strip of land, is right here. So we're going to be taking off to the east and climbing up through this valley. You could take off to the east and fly out over this lake, but maybe I should show you where we're going. Maybe that would be helpful. So, by the way, here is the studio that makes this really great scenery. I purchased the Quantum River Airport, and that's our destination. And then you get the Mockmel Fisheries for free, and that's where we're starting. So enough about Prop Strike Studio. So here's our area that we're going to be concentrating on. Down here we have Seattle and Victoria. Just north of here we have the very most southern part of Alaska. So we're just going to be concentrating on this area here. So a close-up. So let me explain here. So here is Mockmel Fisheries, and we're going to climb up through this canyon. And when we get above the mountains, we're going to just use pilotage, not even dead reckoning, just pilotage to fly down to Quantum River Strip. It's not an airport, it's a strip. The red line just represents as the crow flies, just so you get some idea. And these green circles are going to be landmarks that I'm going to be looking for. That's what you do in pilotage. You stare out the window and then you stare at the map in your lap and try to make sure they're matching up. The other rudimentary type of navigation is dead reckoning, where you're using wind to determine your crab angle and then determine the bearing that you want to get to your destination. But we're just going to use pilotage. I really enjoy it, and I think the scenery is going to be good enough so I can do it, even though above these mountains it all kind of blends together. So we're going to be looking for these little valleys and lakes and hopefully make sense out of it. Now I superimposed the compass rose from a nearby VOR over my route so I could get some idea of what my bearing is going to be, and I figured out it's going to be 126. So let's climb into our Pilatus. So this is the Coronado Pilatus PC-12, an older model, as you can tell. You would expect to see at least G1000s and something new. So we need to close up that passenger door and climb on in. This is not going to be a demo on how to fly this airplane, but I will go through a checklist to make sure we don't miss anything. So let's start with the batteries, and how about a beacon and maybe some nav lights. We're not going to see much traffic up here, but we might as well be safe. You can leave these fuel pump and ignition switches on auto, but if you like flipping switches, you can do that. And you get that little sound until we get the engine started. So I'm going to flip starter, And just so you can see, we've got this starting to turn, and when our NG reaches 13, we can move our condition lever up to ground idle. Oops. While we're down here, let's flip on our oxygen and our ESP. And when we get things stabilized, flip on our generators. And our avionics. Ignition can go to auto. And we're set. This is a very easy plane to get started and get rolling. So I'll put in a notch of flaps. There we go. And we'll taxi on over to our strip and notice the scenery along the way. Release that brake. Get a little bit more power to get through this dirt. But again, notice the detail in that surface. They give some sort of specs as to how detailed it is. I don't exactly remember what it is, but so we've got some cartons off to the side. We've got an old boat up against the tree. And of course, we don't have to worry about radio communications up here. And we want to make sure we've got the full length of that runway. All right, before we take off, a few things. Landing lights strobe for identification, if nothing else, or recognition, I should say. And then our condition lever goes up to flight idle. I'm going to add another notch of flaps. This is a short field, rough field takeoff. So I need all the help I can get. So the brakes are on. I'll ramp up the power. Release those brakes. I'm going to pull back just a little bit on the yoke to take some weight off that front tire or wheel. No problem. Okay, we'll put those flaps up and get rid of that sound. And again, we're just climbing up through this valley. And I've got this set to, let's make it 500. Come on. Why is this so hard? And I'll arm that and autopilot. Probably come back a little bit on our power. Climbing at 3,000 feet. not in that big of a hurry. So you'll notice how this valley splits off to the left and to the right. So if we look at our route, so we're climbing up through here, and you see how it splits off? So we want to veer to the right, and once we get over this little lake, we'll head 126. And I'm going to use the autopilot just to make it easier. Forgot to arm that. You got to make sure that's lit up. So we're only at 5,000, coming up on 6. So the roly-poly mountains of X-Plane. I am using HD mesh from Pilatus, but still kind of weird looking. See how that splits there? And that's quite obvious when you look on the map. I mean, it's a pretty significant one. And we'll bear a little bit to the right. I'm not using autopilot for anything but my climb. Very stable aircraft. So this is set to 126. There's our lake. Looks like there's another little lake here, just off of our right. There was a way back in X-Plane 8 or 9 where you could look straight down underneath the airplane, but maybe you still can. I just haven't figured out how to do it. Alright, coming up on our altitude. Beautiful ride for our passengers. Typical Coronado detail. Nice airplane.
Playing of songs shuffled.
All right, we're probably over that lake. And we can begin our southeast direction here. Come on, there we go. And we'll want to start looking for that first landmark. It's a ways down. We've got two valleys here we're going to kind of keep an eye out for, so there'll be kind of a dark area along the horizon for those, but this is the lake we're looking for. But it's difficult to do any checking along this route. So here's that one valley. Just check our... Now here's something weird. There's an airport here, and I think my buddy Steve Haynes at Duskbound Aviator knows about this. By the way, check out his YouTube channel, Duskbound Aviator, Steve Haynes. But I think he knows something about that airport. He was trying to tell me something about it, but... Alright, so are we on the right bearing here? It looks like we're headed... It's not really holding it. I'm gonna go back a little bit, couple degrees here, and start looking for that lake. It will be down one of these valleys. So we've got a couple here before we get to this one. I just think that's odd that it's not really holding it exact. Let me try 124. See if we can get a true 126. So that's probably that second valley. Aha, here's our lake. So where are we in relationship to it? Let's see where we should be. Yep, just to the east of it. So I think we're in good shape. Nothing off to the east that's remarkable. Now I'm not sure if this is the 10,000 foot that would be next, but let's see where we're headed. So next is this mountain here, but I see a lot of them on the horizon, so I guess the next one I wanted to look for was this kind of Y-shaped canyon valley. It kind of starts up here and works its way down. So we've got this one that kind of goes down towards that valley. So I guess that could be that one or that one. It's hard to tell. They all look the same, don't they? So I think this is the beginning of that valley that ends up kind of forming the Y that I was looking for. So there's this valley that comes down to meet it. So we're looking right here. So here's that valley that comes down. And then finally we get this Y. And then it goes on down to this large lake that we'll cross. Got a lake right underneath us. I wonder if that shows up on the map. Yep, right here. Just by that circle. And we should be a little bit to the right of it. All right, and here's the stem of our Y. And here's kind of that U-shaped valley. So where should we be in relationship to this point right here where we begin to cross? So we should be probably a little bit further east, according to the map. We can make that adjustment. Make it 122. Now note this valley here. And this kind of comes around. This is where we're going to, just before we cross. So you can see this inlet here. So that would be right here. So we're pretty much on course. So we're going to just trim off the eastern side of that little point. And then we've got this valley here. Kind of a dip. And I guess that would be right in here. So we just want to trim the eastern side of that slope, which it looks like we're going to do. So we're at 122. At least that's what our heading is set at. But if you look closely, we're a couple of degrees, well, we're about 125 actually. So our next waypoint, or not our fix, I guess you would call it, is this lake here. So we want to be to the east of it a fair amount. It's kind of in this valley. And then we want to begin our descent. And what I'm going to do is start right about here and weave down through this valley, because there isn't room for us to get down if I've got to fly over these mountains. So let's see where our lake is. And I can see it just coming into view here. So my friend, Steve Haynes, saw Steve-01 Knievo, who's a real TBM 900 pilot, who is now grounded because of COVID, do this in X-Plane in the X-Plane's TBM 900 from, I think it's X-Pilot. Pretty significant airplane. So we're all taking up the gauntlet. So once we get over this, I guess we can start thinking about descending. I think the valley I want is right here. But let's go ahead and put in 9,000 feet and hit the down button and come back on my speed a little bit. Come back on the power, I should say. Absolutely beautiful. I've never been here in real life. So here's kind of the northern tip of that one lake, and that would be this right here. Yeah, so the lake, or the valley I want is right here. We'll probably increase our descent a little bit. And I'm going to tweak my heading, head towards that valley. A little bit more. So remember, these strips are almost at sea level. I'm going to dial it down a little further. Just keep on going. Maybe down to 3,000. think I'll kill my autopilot. Don't need to descend that quickly. But we're headed in this direction over here. But in order to achieve the altitude we need, I'm starting early. And by the way, we're going to fly right over a surprise airport that's here as part of that package from Prop Strike. It's called Moles, M-O-L-S. And it's just a tiny little strip surrounded by trees. And maybe in another short video, I'll fly the 172 over there from Quantum Valley, or Quantum Ranch. It's right here. It looks big. It's not. Believe me. So we're headed over here. Again, I'm just hand flying. Yes, there's actually a little facility here, a couple of trucks, again with that same level of detail that we saw back at the fisheries and what we'll see at Quantum Valley, or Quantum Ranch. I keep saying Valley. All right, power all the way off. We want to slow down. I can drop my gear at 177 knots, I believe. Flaps about 160. So I'm going to drop my gear to just help me out. This is an airport that a strip that you need to be low and slow. Speed's coming down. Slow down my descent a little bit. First notch of flaps. So our runway is going to be off to our left. I keep saying runway. Wait till you see it. And it's like, when you fly through those trees, it's like flying through a goalpost. All right, add a little power back in. Getting a little slow here. And I'm going to stay to the right along the edge of these mountains so I can have a nice long approach, make corrections as I need them. Might have slowed down a little too soon, but I want to be under 1,000 feet when I turn final, maybe even less. Second notch, flaps. Thing's hard to spot. Here we go. All right, don't want to go any slower. There we go. And there's a working crane over there. It's pretty cool. All right, let's shut this thing down. So, get the flaps up. Ground idle. And cut off. Go up and turn off taxi lights, landing lights, strobe, nav. beacon. Anyway, Bread Wild, thanks for joining me. Hope this was slightly interesting. And why don't you pick up the gauntlet yourself and try the challenge. And don't forget to look at that scenery from Prop Strike Studios. Thanks, until next time.